Welcome to Story Matters. My guest today is Meredith Stepien. Hello, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm wearing the Grandma Land sweatshirt in honor of you.
Oh, I wish I had just worn that. I was like, I'll wear a nice sweater, but
No, you look like it is the perfect winter aesthetic going on.
Really?
It's great.
Okay.
And the like painting on the wall behind you matches the couch, which matches you. It's just
Yeah,
lovely.
it's very green here right now.
It's a lot of layers.
All green. Oh, I knew that was coming. I saw her perk up. Hold on. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, no worries.
Hey, Brian's here. Oh, look who's making an appearance. Oh, is that right?
Welcome to the podcast, Luna. Luna, what do you like about VHS Christmas Carols?
She's like,
Are you a fan?
Everyone comes over to our house and says, hey.
16 different dog sitters.
Yeah. Okay, get in the camera at least.
There's some like people out.
Oh, there's people looking at our little free library. That's what she's barking at. Okay, yes,
Luna's
you
like,
see them. Good.
Do you not see?
Brad, do you want to say hi? We're live.
Sure.
This is my husband.
Hey, it's Meredith's husband, otherwise known as just Meredith's husband. That's it.
Thank
I like
you.
your sweatshirt. Brian, you did such a good job on the edit. I haven't gotten to watch all of it, but I've been seeing clips and it looks so good. It sounds so good. So I know you have been absolutely busting your butt for the last, I don't know. How long has it been since we closed?
Well,
to get that out?
I didn't really start working on it seriously until like the Saturday after Thanksgiving. But yeah, it's kind of, there are a few scenes that are from both shows, you know what I mean? Where it's like,
yeah,
it's not just one show that we edited, so that's always the most time consuming part. But yeah, I got some help with the audio from Connor, who was our sound mixer, our live sound mixer, and yeah, it all went pretty well. I'll try and keep Luna busy here.
Yeah, it's okay. People love Luna, so Luna's contributions are welcome.
This is what couples therapy is Brian. We actually sit right here and we have our computer right here, and then Luna gets rowdy and it's like half us trying to manage. But luckily our therapist also has a dog and often has to get up to pull things out of her dog's mouth. So anyway, here we
are. Thank you for being here. I'm excited to talk about VHS Christmas Carols. Obviously, it's the digital ticket's out, but I want to talk with you just about your you you and Brian and obviously there's multiple producers and people involved, Clark, but you've been such a champion of the show for this is the 5th year, which is crazy. This is like it's continued to evolve and take on new shapes and forms, and I'm just I guess I want to start with, like, what is it about this particular show that you love so much? And I know that you do love it and you're such like the heart of it. And I think a big reason it keeps going. And as you said, I think it was in your vlog, which I love, by the way, it was so good. But when AJ, I think he said it at the party when he was like, we keep coming back because of the people and the show. But like, what is it about this show? And is it Christmas Carol? Is it the combination of Clark and Christmas Carol? Like, what is it about this show that you love so much?
That's a great question. I feel like there's a couple different layers to why I love it so much. Yes, part of it for me is Christmas Carol because it's one of my favorite books and stories. It's interesting. I'm not really a Charles Dickens fan other than Christmas Carol. I've tried his other books and I'm like, not hitting the same way. But there's something about Christmas Carol. My family has just grown up absolutely loving it. Our favorite.
And isn't it nuts to me, just to speak about like the Dickens of it all?
Yeah.
Is it like there's so many different theater companies or I don't know, churches or whatever, where this is like, it is such a staple and people always show up for it. There's like something in the text, in the story, in the idea that is like, I don't know. It's like, it feels, it's like cliche to say timeless, but like there's few stories that have the staying power.
It's timeless and it's like so relevant now. I mean, if you read the book or I mean, obviously you can watch our show and get the vibes, but like if you read the full text of what Jacob Marley is saying to Scrooge when he visits him, it's so like it's so well, like it's so impactful and it's so relevant right now too, especially with everything that's going on, you know.
It
But
was it was it was kind of surreal in some ways to like think about the show through that context,
yes,
going
yes,
into rehearsals a week after. Just like it was,
feel
the
it.
timing was like, huh. Let me really
I
think about
know.
what I'm saying, what we're saying in this right now. It's the message
Yeah.
never gets old, you know.
Yes. When Jacob Marley is like, screw. Sorry, I'm gonna put the here. Let me show. Well, I
I
know.
promise, Luna, this only makes the podcast better. It only makes it better.
In case some people are not going to be able to see this because they're just listening, this is a toy that is shaped kind of like a steering wheel that you would use with like a video game thing, and it's got like nail file material on it, and you can put treats into a hole on the side, and then Luna will now scratch at this and try to get treats out, and it will also file her nails.
Wait, is she able to get the treats out eventually?
Yeah, it takes her a little bit, so I'm hoping to keep her busy for a minute. She just happened to get hyper right before this, and I was like, "Kurt, I'm so sorry if Luna's hyper right now." But
Luna,
anyway,
not Luna, Lucy, our we call her the trash kitten because I think she like grew up in the trash, and so her favorite thing to do is if there's a plastic bag or trash bag, she just goes in and like, so at night you'll be laying in bed and you'll just hear and you'll be like,
what?
oh, she's in the trash again.
It's plastic and cats. They love it. Why? It's so not good for them.
It's not good.
Okay.
And we're like, you don't have to eat the trash anymore.
Yeah.
You have a home. Anyway, okay. Jacob Marley.
Oh yeah. Well, Scrooge is like, Jacob, you were always such a good man of business. And then Jacob gives this speech of like, business. He's like, mankind was my business, the common welfare. And then he says, the dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business. And I'm like, I couldn't think of anything more. Like, you know what I mean? And that's kind
Yeah.
of been too something that
Yeah.
I've been clinging to over the last few years because I was suffering from burnout, as all of us were,
Yeah.
with work. And I've done a ton of work on myself to try and remind myself like what's important. And it is like, it's good to remind ourselves the dealings of our trade or our work are kind of nothing compared to like the point of us
Yeah.
being on this earth. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel this a lot where, I mean, and every business is like this, but I feel like I hear this a lot in this industry and like a lot of
Mhm.
people in Los Angeles in particular, where you'll say like, how are you? And the inherent sort of instinctive reply is like, here's what I'm working on.
Yes, yeah.
Like, how are you? Oh, good, because I'm doing this and I'm doing, and I'm guilty of that, where I find myself even at the end of the year being like, well, what am I doing next year? And how am I going to define whether it's a good, like, and I'm
Right.
really trying to unpack I mean, obviously I love doing things with people and I love doing creative work and it's great to get paid, but trying to go, that is not the value. Like, I am
Yeah, that's not
alive.
important. It's not,
You're
it's like kind of
alive.
made up. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great reminder, and I think that's what makes the story so good. And I know that Charles Dickens writing A Christmas Carol. I don't know if have you watched The Man Who Invented Christmas?
Yeah. Is that the one with
Dan Stevens, my
Dan
crush.
Stevens?
Yes,
Oh, I love Dan
I know
Stevens.
he's my
I love
crush.
Dan Stevens and everything.
Celebrity crush.
He's so good.
Yeah, he. Sorry if you can all hear Luna playing with that toy in the background, by the way, because it is loud.
I actually
But,
can't. The
oh, okay.
Zencaster does a pretty good job of like suppressing things,
Okay,
so I
good.
can't
Because
hear it.
she's
But
literally
if I
throwing.
could, it's okay.
Okay. But I know that he wrote it kind of in a crunch, and was like, I got to get this out by Christmas. And it was like a super short turnaround. And he kind of came up with it on the fly. And then it literally, like, that along with the invention or the implementation of the train system are kind of like the two things that are recognized as being kind of what invigorated Christmas to become the big deal that it is today. Because before that, it was just kind of like an extra little holiday that people, sometimes did or did not make time for. But after that story, it kind of like launched this newfound love for Christmas that hadn't been there before, which I think is so special. And yeah, so the reason I love the show is because Clark, and I'm lucky because I got to hear some like early iterations of the show.
Yeah,
Um,
like, that was a question I had because I don't
yeah,
even know this. When was like the first sort of concept of it pitched around? Was it around 2020 times or was it prior to
yes,
that or?
it was not too similar to how Charles Dickens had that quick turnaround for the original story. Clark was like, I've he had come up with the concept and written he wrote the songs in order, he said. So he had written Bah Humbug and then Three Spirits. That was the first one I heard, was Three Spirits. And it was not too long after that that it was like, okay, you gotta finish this show and then we'll get it rolling by Christmas. And it was a very quick turnaround at that point. um but when I heard Three Spirits, that's when I texted Clark and said, "Can I please be Jacob Marley?" Because I'm like, my brother and I are just like huge Jacob Marley fans. We love the George C. Scott version of Christmas Carol where
It's so good.
Frank Finlay plays Jacob Marley, and he just gives this stellar performance that is so impactful. And Luna, go find your daddy. Where is he? He could be missing. Where is he? Go find him. Yeah, you better bring him your cheese. Where is he? Okay, that works sometimes. Anyway.
Okay.
So I literally asked Clark if I could be Jacob Marley, and he was like, never thought about having a woman play Jacob Marley, but yeah. So
That's a
I'm
good
kind
Clark
of
impression.
I'm kind of a brat like that. But also, I'm also a musician. I'm actually not a musical person, which is weird because, I've written a musical and I'm part of Starkid. I'm in all these musicals. But I'm like not the kind of person who like knows what's on Broadway, and I have all these like when I just
Can I
saw
just
Wicked.
say, honestly, that's one of the things that I made me feel really at home with Starkid people. Is not that people aren't on are everyone, is so good in their craft, but
Mhm.
it felt like the first time I was around musical theater people who that wasn't the entire thing. Because
Yes,
I
yeah.
felt like a really bad Broadway fan where I'm like, I don't really know what's going on.
Mhm.
If I know somebody in a show, I'm like, woohoo! But I don't. I just don't. It's not my world in a weird way. And I always wrestled with this. I don't know if you ever felt this way out of school or whatever, but when I first like was on Glee, my agent manager was like, "You gotta like go to New York and audition," and I would, and it gave me like panic attacks, like full on panic attacks because of the stress of it. And actually,
Yes.
you'd be really proud of me. I just turned down an audition for a national tour and told my agent, I said, "I don't want to do this." So anyway,
Nice. I'm
so
proud
but
of that.
but I feel that way. So just as a
Yeah.
tangential thing, like I love musical theater for what it can be, but I'm not necessarily like the most in the know. So I'm
No,
with
I'm
you.
not in the know. I don't know shit. I don't know any Broadway stars. When I just saw Wicked the movie, I was like, I recognize a couple songs from here, I think. I saw that musical once when it like first came out, and I don't remember that kind of stuff. So anyway, but I do love Clark's music so
Dude,
much. And I think that musically, the way he captured every moment of the show, like, because I know it's so front to back, like the way that it's like this one line has this, mood to it, or like this feeling, and then it'll totally switch for this next line, which is also pushing the plot forward and hitting something important, and then also like just like tiny moments like when he eats the pudding and goes, so good it's blowing my mind, and it's like the pudding point, because in the George C. Scott version, like that's a whole moment when he gets the pudding and he tastes it and everybody's looking at him and they're waiting, and then he goes, a triumph, my dear, another triumph, and everyone's like, yeah, dad loves the pudding. I'm like, Clark captured that moment
and
in
like
the
somehow
song.
distilled all of that pretty, somewhat dense literature and all these adaptations into like such a tight, finely tuned 45 minutes where it's like it's
Yes.
the essential but I think you've said this before, but just it I think it's one of the best adaptations, and it really understands what these moments mean, and how
Yes.
to tell them musically is such a
Yes.
that's such a gift.
It's
I
such a gift.
and in a way that I feel is like it's with a lot of musical theater, it's very complex. It's like, whoa, it's
Mhm.
so there's so layers and motifs, and that's great, and I love that. But I think Clark has this ability to write things where people can walk in and be like, I know that song now. I can sing that
Yes.
song now. And so
Yes.
it's like complex, but also so accessible. I don't know
Yes.
how he does it, man.
I know. Another part that you're involved in that like gets me is when she gives back the ring and you go, you don't know what this cost, but then Scrooge, who's watching, is like, you don't know what you've lost. And the way the music just slows down and like pauses
Da-na.
for that
Oh,
moment. Oh my god, it makes me cry every time. It's so
yeah.
good. And you know, the obviously the big part that really gets me is when he's like when he gives him the raise. When he gives Pop Crush
Oh,
the raise
it's so
and
good.
just musically like he brought back that stern part from the beginning where he's pissed and the music is angry and then it's like just this whole new major moment and he's giving you the things and then they bring back the priceless chorus. Oh my god, it's just so genius. It's so
Because
good.
and there's a world where I think in less talented hands, it could be such a I don't know. It could be just like a bit that gets old, like, oh yeah, Scrooge, 80s, I get it.
Right.
But
No, exactly.
you know what I mean? It
Yes.
doesn't feel like, oh, we're just doing a bit. It's baked into it. I don't know how he did that.
Yeah, I did have trouble like sometimes expressing to people, you know, people that I know, like because you know it's one thing to promote these shows to fans of Starkid because they're like, oh, we get it and we're gonna come and love, but like people that we know who don't really know like what we do, it's harder to be like, you should come see this 80s musical version of A Christmas Carol. Um, sorry, my lighting's getting wacky because the sun's out. But it's like that doesn't really sound that. It sounds like oh, that could easily be very bad. But I'm
Yeah.
like, I've started to in my communication just be like, I promise you, it's my favorite musical, and and it's like it's one of the best things I've ever been a part of. That's why we keep doing it. Please come see it because it
Yeah.
means so much to me and you could never see anything else I ever do again. But like I just need you to experience this musical.
Yeah. Yeah. What was it like in that crazy getting it? I know Clark was writing it in a mad dash. Obviously, COVID was what a
Mhm.
time. What was that like? Like I got to see a little bit of it because um I came on and helped a little bit with some of the crazy video editing. I helped you guys with a little bit of it. You guys were doing so much of it. But what
Oh
was that like putting it all together and trying to get the whole thing off the
yeah.
ground?
I mean, like thinking back to it's funny because every year there are and like, you know, we don't often talk about them because it's also like you don't want to throw any people under the bus or anything because it's like sometimes things are just not people's fault. But every year there's some sort of like disaster or hurdle that we have to like jump through, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Um and that first year, it was just trying to do a live show from our living rooms. And it seemed like it was going to work. And then to have it like at the end of the day, like at when it was time, showtime, to have it be like, oh, but now the internet just isn't working. Like the internet is out. And then we had to cancel that first show. And that's when we had to like scramble to edit all those
yeah,
videos last minute and that's you and I were pulled in to edit. I like ended up having to take the day off work to like just sit and edit videos all day. But yeah, I mean that first time, but there was also a rush to that because it was like we were stuck
yeah.
in our living rooms, but it felt like the chaos of real live theater from afar, if
It
that
was
makes
also fascinating for me because I never got access to the full show, so I only had these little bits and pieces, and I remember being like, "What is this?" Like, I couldn't wrap my I
the final
loved
product.
I love the music, but I was, like, trying to get a sense of, like, what am I editing? Like, what is the concept
Right.
of, like, where how and then I don't even think I ever saw the final version that went out for that. But
Wow. Okay.
so then when Kim and I came and you guys asked us about covering for the Bourbon Room version, that was when I was like, okay, this is the show. I can see it
Mhm.
now in a strange way. So yeah, it was weird to kind of tangentially, like, I did a lot of video editing for Brian Rosenthal. So I kind
Wait,
of really knew the young Scrooge part. Like I really
I
knew
feel
that.
I feel like it's been enough years where we can pick on Brian Rosenthal in this moment. His green screen situation. Did you
Yes.
have to deal with that?
Yes.
I was so mad at Brian Rosenthal because I was editing that Scrooge, and his green screen was one of those pop-up ones, and it only went like this.
You have to yeah, you have to go in and like do the
Yes,
masking.
yes, I did a mask circle of his head, and then the other thing that he did is he would be, like, on camera, and the thing would be filming and the music would be playing, and he'd go, "All right, here it comes. Here comes my line," and he'd be saying that to the camera to, like, make the editors laugh, and then he'd be like, "You don't know what this cost," or whatever, and then he would turn back to the camera and go, "Good, got it." So I'd have to fade in his head and for just to like say one line and quickly fade him out before he turned to the
Because
cameras.
I think like at that point nobody quite knew like how
Right,
is it
how
gonna
it's supposed to
work
work.
in the
Yeah,
post.
and like normally stuff like that is very fun and funny, but having it was a floating Brian Rosenthal head that would pop into the screen and then pop away because I'm like, this is all I can do. This is what I got. I have 1 hour to make this video. I'll tell him now. At the time, I was like, I don't want to like make him feel bad because it is funny in retrospect. But at the moment, I was like, Brian Rosenthal, what are you doing to me?
I think I did a lot of I think I was working on some of Allie's stuff and I'd never met Allie, but Allie
Mhm.
was so funny in her commentary. She would like stay in the moment, but she would just be like, "Well, I don't know. We'll see how this goes." And she would do the take and she'd be like, "You're probably not going to want to use that. I don't think that was a good take."
You're
Oh.
like, well, now I can't use this. More just
Oh
like
man.
popping in and out. Yeah, no, it's funny. It's funny now. At that day, I was like laugh crying. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Where
yeah,
you're,
yeah. Yeah, you're delirious.
yes, I was very delirious. We woke up at
That
like 5 a.m. to film stuff to try and
and
like
that,
get the show on its feet.
and that's nuts because but I mean, I think it speaks to the fact that like this is what I love about working with you guys and just this group in general is it's like even when the situation is like less than ideal, there
Mhm.
is such a passion and drive to be like, we'll get it, we'll figure it out. We'll like people care a lot about still like going, even if the situation is nuts,
Yeah.
we're gonna make it good. And I've for years prior to getting to meet everybody, I've just been like desperate to find a community of like friends and artists who felt that way where you're like,
Yeah.
yes, I know we're not doing the most important Tony winning thing, but like we should still care. And I feel like every iteration I've been involved in, even when we were just covering at the Bourbon Room, like there was just such a like care of like we're gonna like make it great and fun and
Mhm.
immersive and and like I don't know, that's like really rare. That's like really rare
Yeah.
that people actually really care. I used to do a lot of sketch comedy here, and I did a lot of stuff at Second City in LA, which I don't know how LA compares to Chicago, but man, it was
Full of people who
awful.
don't care. Yeah.
It was
Yeah, for
awful, and
sure.
just every week writing sketches and pitching ideas and being like nobody wants to be and so,
I know.
like, the contrast of that with, like AJ said in the video, like, when you guys were like, "Hey, we're doing it in Chicago last year," it's like, I will move mountains to, like, be there because it's just, like, one of the best things I get to do all year, you know? And
Yeah.
that's in large part because you guys have fostered that community and that environment that feels, like, fun and safe and creative and, it's
Yeah,
amazing.
it is. It's fun, and it's like, as we other than Scrooge and then Clark, everybody's lift is, like, light enough where
Yeah,
it's not so overwhelming. Because it's like you have your
yeah.
song. I mean, now there's the act 1, so you have a heavier lift.
It's
Um,
still like easy track.
yeah,
Like it's like 2 or 3
yeah.
songs and you learn them and yeah.
Yeah, nothing, it's never so overwhelming, and it's pretty easy to come back and make it happen again every year. And you
Yeah.
like, make little changes here and there, but for the most part it's like, oh, this is in our bones now. Like
And
that's how I'm working from.
Corey Lubowicz did such a great job of kind of setting, I think, the groundwork for the flow of the show, and then I think
Yeah,
James has done a great job picking it up and keeping it cohesive. And it's like, yeah, it doesn't feel like, I couldn't believe last year because we had less rehearsal last year, and
I
I just
know.
remember being like, this is insane that we're doing this, and then I never felt. And I know there's a lot of stress and things that I'm sure a lot of the actors like don't necessarily see because you guys are dealing with, you know,
Sure.
venues
This
and locations and all that. But
Yeah.
from my end, I was like, wow, it was actually it was pretty chill. And that's like a rare
Mhm.
feeling, you know?
This year was pretty smooth, like, all things considered. We had to scramble to find some new people to help with, to be in the show, and then
Hmm.
to help with, like, building the set and stuff. Like, we couldn't get everybody back, but that's pretty much like, those scrambles and then just, like, little things that all resolved were pretty much it. It wasn't like last year we had to, I don't know if I've even talked about this, but remember when we had to change theaters last minute because the
Yeah.
theater we were supposed to be at what got
Yeah.
sketchy?
Yeah. That was like a real last minute too.
It
Real
was
last minute.
super, yeah, it was, I remember Brian's birthday, was almost ruined, and Brian's birthday is August 27th. It was almost ruined by this sketchy theater that I won't name the theater, but we were supposed to do the show somewhere,
Yeah.
and then had to scramble last minute, and it was like such a bad situation. That was a pretty low. And the
Yeah.
Apollo, we had reached out to them and they said they like weren't ready to put shows back on yet. And then it just like, right after Brian's birthday, they were like, actually, we do now have openings. And that's why we ended up doing it in November instead of December. And it ended up working out great.
Yeah.
I think the like right before Thanksgiving is a nice timeline.
The people at the Apollo are so lovely too.
Yes.
Like they're just the
They're-
people who run it. They're like, and they're always coming in the theater and like taking
Yeah.
photos, and they're like,
They're
we love
so
you
nice.
guys.
They help
Yeah.
with every aspect of it, like, they're so involved with, like, they come to Tara would come to, tech meetings, what am I trying to say? Like, crew meetings or whatever,
Yeah.
and just be like, "Oh, that's what you plan to do that day? I'll make sure to have these ladders out for you." And then, "Oh, you're selling merch, y'all need change? Let me go get our change bag for you." You know what I mean? Just, like,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
helpful in every aspect of the process, so
I also think what's so cool about, and I'm curious to talk a little bit about sort of your role with this process too, but I think it's really cool in the last few years how just Starkid as an entity has this mobility to do things where it's not just limited to one particular city or one particular place, but
yeah.
like being able to come together in Chicago, or you guys went to London back in May, and that was like,
Yeah.
I mean, the pictures and videos from that were mind-boggling, just that people were,
Yeah.
and I just think it's cool that I feel like there's this kind of not new chapter, but it's cool that there's this mobility and this agility to do things in different places,
Mhm.
and it's not this sort of, it has to be here, it has to do this thing. So like, what's that been for you? Because I know you were involved in the init process and in this, but like logistically, like I don't know, is that something that you hope to do more of? Is like find ways to branch out and do more shows in Chicago, or like do projects where you go to London, whatever. Like that's just a really cool thing to me that we get to do.
Yeah, I mean, I do think I think about shows in Chicago often. Um, I've reached a point in my life where I'm it's not that I'm not motivated. I'm very motivated to do certain things, but I like am definitely not what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, when you're like, I gotta do this and I gotta grow my career. Do you know what word I'm looking for? I
I know what you mean because I feel it in my soul.
ambitious, ambitious.
Ambitious. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
am still motivated, but I am not ambitious at all
Yeah.
anymore. And that's like, it's just, I'm just like, well, part of it is anxiety, part of it is like shift
Yeah.
of priorities.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I like just reached a point where, oh, sorry, I'm filling a new toy with treats to keep Luna busy. Uh, so, what I really want is for Clark to write more musicals. I am not super interested in like writing my own musical or doing anything too intense, but I'm like, if you do all the work for me, I will help.
Yeah, 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 totally.
That's kind of where I'm at, where I'm like, it'd be so cool, Clark, for to have you write another, like, I don't know, like a Pride and Prejudice musical is what I keep trying to toss his way. And then we could, do that in Chicago, fly
Yeah.
some people out and
And it's
use.
such a great, you have such a great, obviously, connections there, and
Yeah.
Chicago's such a great theater town, and the resources of it. Um, man, I relate to that so much because, I mean, even like this conversation I just had with my own agent, where
Mhm.
even he was like, this was like, for like, the thing I turned down was like objectively a cool thing. Like, oh,
Yeah.
that's a pretty, and I was like, 20-year-old me would be like, I got it. But yeah, and
Right.
I was like, it's not. And he was, he said something to the effect of like, well, I thought you like doing theater. You was doing theater with your friends. And I was like, yeah, with my friends,
With my friend under
like
specific
very specific circumstances.
one
And like you
weekend of
said,
performance.
it's not lack of motivation, because when we come together, there's everyone is like cares, and but yeah, it's that feeling of like, I don't need to like level up and like achieve. And I don't know, I actually think it's a really healthy place to be at creatively, because
Yes.
then
Yes.
the stuff that you're making, you go, this is it, whatever it is, whether it's a large scale thing that a lot of people are seeing, or the care is in the process. And I don't know,
Yeah.
that's in a weird way, like I'm so grateful for, I mean, a lot of people, a lot of the creators I got to work with, but in particular, like Starkid and the Tin Can Brothers and people like that,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
I feel like when I found you guys creatively, I went, oh, this is the joy, and
Yeah.
I felt like I had been striving and trying to, I was like, UCB and Second City, and I'm trying to, and then I'm like, I don't want to climb a ladder, I
Yeah.
just want to. It's actually really, I think it's really healthy, honestly.
Yeah. Have you read the book Happiness Falls by any chance?
No, no.
I talk about this book all the time because I read it last year. It was my favorite book of 2023. Wow, that was last year. Anyway, it's a fiction and it's kind of a mystery, but it's written by this woman who like really does deep dives when she writes. Like I think she
Yeah.
might have, I don't know, this is me guessing, but I feel like she might have an obsessive personality which is similar to me when I'm in some, if I'm in a crisis, for example, like once I had bed bugs, or when we got Luna and she was like leash reactive, I will do these deep dives where all I think about is like, I had to learn everything about bed bugs.
Yeah.
And then I had to learn everything about leash reactivity and dog training, and it was like, that's all I could think about for days or whatever. I feel like her personality is similar and it comes through in her books. But anyway, long story short, one of the deep dives she's doing in Happiness Falls for real as a concept is the concept of happiness and what is happiness. And then there's this question posed, which is, can an ambitious person ever be happy?
Mm,
And I think about it all the time
mm.
where I'm like, because I see it here too with Second City or IO or any of the comedy stuff
I
where
know
it's like,
Chicago's such a
yes.
comedy competition
Right.
town. It's
Yes.
like,
And it's like, yes, okay, I got onto an IO team, but I'm not going to be happy till I get, on a Second City main stage, because that's the big time stuff. And then you get there and it's like, now I'm not going to be happy until I get a big agent and maybe get on SNL or on a big show or whatever. And it's like, it's just this never
and
ending,
even
like,
then, it's like you got
yes,
to leverage SNL into your
yes,
sitcom career, and it's like it never
exactly.
stops.
It
It like
never,
never stops.
it literally never stops. So it's like, when you look at success and happiness and you like wrap it in with something so big and like so ambitious, yeah, it's like, can you ever truly be happy, versus people who are less ambitious? And like, this is kind of part of my, what I've been going through for the last few years, is just like being content with the day,
Mhm.
the day to day. And it's like, sometimes I have a journal where I put like, for every single day, I pick a sticker. I spend a lot of money on stickers. But I pick a sticker that like represents like how the day felt. And then I write one thing that was a highlight. And sometimes it really is just like, I had a killer cocktail at
Yeah.
dinner, or like,
Yeah.
I finished a puzzle,
Yeah.
or like I had a new bird in the backyard that we haven't had yet. And it's helped me to rewire my brain. The other big rule I have about my journal is I never ever write work achievements in it. Even if I do have a big work achievement,
Yeah.
it's not allowed in my journal because I don't want to feel like career or work achievements are my life. So
Yes. Yeah.
I'll like skip a work achievement and put, like I had a great cuddle fest with Luna.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and
But
it's tough to parse that because
yeah,
on some level, the things I'm most like you were saying, like, if anybody comes and sees a show, see this one because I'm proud of it. And I have so much pride for the things that I get to help create and be part of. But
yeah,
separating that from ambition of like, no, I'm proud of what they are because of what they are, not
right.
because of what they're supposed to then help me leverage up into. And like that's been a big breakthrough for me in the last few years of realizing like the thing is the thing I'm proud of is because it exists as it is, not because how I can flip this into something more.
Yeah,
And the thing with ambition is like it really never does make you happy. It comes with a promise that at the end of this, there's some final unlock
mhm.
that's going to be like, now you're, but it's like, but it never,
You reached the
truly,
top. Yeah. It's like, yeah,
there's,
what is
and
that?
I've met so, working and especially doing like coaching and teaching and stuff. I've met so many people who I'm like, I mean, it's such a cliche, but it goes back to the Scrooge thing where I'm like, you have everything. You have
Right.
everything I could ever imagine. I think I want,
Right.
and you don't seem like you have any joy.
Yeah, like,
So,
are you
huh?
happy? Yeah, can you enjoy things? I was just saying, because I have a friend who asked me to talk to his friend about my career and my life, and because this person wants to get involved in the entertainment business. I'm sure you get this all the time, Kurt, as well.
Don't do it.
Um, I
Don't do
know, I
it.
literally was joking with Brian and Angela where I was like, I wanna write back to him and be like, "Have you ever watched TV or, like, ordered food?" Like, those things are so much cooler than trying to get involved in the entertainment industry. Not that the entertainment industry can be really great and fun, and you can make so many friends and everything, but it's like, for the most part, like, I'm like, I wouldn't trade watching TV for most things these days,
Yeah. I feel the
especially
same about like going to movies. I'm like,
yeah.
I've had to ask myself, like, and Kim even asked me, she's like, do you love being an actor and making movies, or do you just like love going to movies? And I'm like, ooh,
Ooh,
because
good
I do
question.
love just going to a movie and sitting there and
Yeah.
watching it. But but then I find myself being like, I think I want to try. But yeah, it's like sometimes it's
Mhm.
okay to just relish in the joy of the thing and not feel like you have to like achieve something just
Right.
to make it valid?
Yes. Speaking of which, we rented Conclave.
What'd you think?
It was so amazing.
It's so good.
Brian and I were supposed to drive home from Thanksgiving on Saturday night, and we were gonna leave at 6 o'clock. And at 6 o'clock, I was like, "I'll take Luna for one last bathroom." And I took her outside, and it was still snow. It had been snowing all day, and it was still snowing. And like the forecast kept saying, "Only 5 more minutes of snow," and it was still snowing. And I just had a panic attack, and I was like, "We can't drive in this. We can't drive in this. We have to stay." And I was like, "But I promise to make it good for everyone. I'll rent Conclave for the family." So I like spent the $20 to like rent it on Amazon Prime or
Yeah, yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And it was so worth. And I was like, this is such a better choice to just be
Oh,
watching this incredible movie where it's just
just
watching some of our best actors.
just actors in rooms
Yeah,
whispering
yeah,
dramatically. It's so good.
and
That twist at the end. Oh
yeah,
my god.
I know, and there's like just little bits, like little, we're just gonna inch the plot forward just a little bit, but now we're gonna sit in it, and you're gonna watch these
Yeah.
people react and just like try and figure it out, and then we're gonna add a little bit more, but nothing too intense. It was
Yes.
so good.
Yeah. Also, it was because I watched it the second night I was in Chicago when I was there, and because I was just like after rehearsal, I was like, well, I'm on LA time, and I went and saw it, and it was wild watching it after the election too, because it's just I
Yeah,
was just like, whoa, I'm like, it was like there's so many topical elements and
I
tangential
know.
things.
I kept saying, because
Conclave is really good, everybody. It's really good.
yeah, Conclave is amazing. And my dad, grew up Catholic, and Brian also grew up Catholic and going and being an altar boy and stuff. So I kept asking them, like, is this real? Like, is this like, what is happening? Do they really put the smoke up like this? And he's like, yep,
Yeah,
I'm like, what? This has happened in our lifetime?
it's
He's like,
so
yeah,
dramatic.
oh, it's so wild. Anyway, tangent.
Something you said about the journaling, which I wanted to also talk about in this, just because
Yeah.
I love that you put this in the world. You know, the times I've gotten to stay with you and Brian, your home is just so lovely. You create a space and environment that just feels like, it's just like I feel at home when I'm that's a hard thing to do. Like, it's one thing to have like a lovely place that's like, well, this is nice. It's another thing to have like create an environment where people walk in, they immediately feel at ease. And I feel
Oh,
like you do this with like the vlogs that you make. You really capture this kind of the journey of like trying to find those moments. So I'm just curious, like with the vlogging journey of everything, is that something you kind of just fell into naturally, or do you find yourself, I feel like you really enjoy capturing things, right? Like it feels like
yes.
it's really intuitive to you and you're so good at it. I'm so bad at it. I've tried vlogging and I
No,
just
you're
cannot.
not. You're so good at it. Every
Not
time I
not
whip out my camera, you're whipping out your camera, and I'm like,
Yeah, but
we
like
I both.
I like filming certain things, but I've tried to like capture the feeling of like my day, and I'm not very good at translating it in a way that you are, and I'm just curious how you go about like thinking about it or editing. Like, I don't know, just tell me about, and just sort of, I feel like the vlogging is an extension of what you were talking about being really intentional with these just small moments. It's so lovely. If anybody hasn't seen Meredith's vlog, go watch them. I feel like everybody here probably has.
That's
But
so nice of you.
no, I mean it though. I really mean that. It's like
Thank you.
It's hard to make we were talking about this because you were mentioning that, I can't remember the name, but it was like a YouTuber that you were like, how does she get these shots?
Yona Yinton.
And it's such, and I know like obviously like she's got all
She's
kinds
got
of resources,
equipment.
but
Yeah.
you have the same essence where when you watch it, you feel like, wow, I'm really experiencing this moment with you and not just kind of observe. Like some vlogging back in the like 2015 days when everybody was vlogging, it just felt like people were just like, and here I am doing this, and here I am doing this, and
Right.
that's not what you're doing. You're doing something that makes me feel like I'm with you and experiencing like things through your perspective. How do you do that? What's your
Nice.
secret?
That's so nice. I don't really have a secret. I just have always been a documentarian. I always, like, in high school, I would go buy disposable cameras, usually like two. I would buy two at a time, and those would last me like maybe 2 weeks. Um and I would constantly take photos, even like at school, in high school. Um and then I would go get the photos developed, and I would get doubles, and I would make myself a photo album, and I just have stacks and stacks of photo albums from this time, and then I would hand the rest out at school, so it was like pre-Facebook, like, photo sharing, you know? And then college came around, and I started college it was like the same year or maybe just after Facebook started, where like
Yep.
The University of Michigan was one of the first colleges that was allowed to use Facebook, which is so silly.
That's
But
right, because then at first you had to have like a .edu address to sign up
yes,
for Facebook.
yes,
It was like it was
exactly.
exclusively for students. That's
It was
wild. What a
exclusive,
time.
and it started as only Ivy Leagues, and then they were like, "Okay,
Right.
we'll open it up to Big Tens," and then it was like that, then you can do EDUs, and then they opened it up, and now everybody has all the old people in our life. But, yeah, I got really into, like, storytelling through my albums on Facebook. And for a while, I was still using disposable cameras where I would take it and I would get a CD that I would then put into a computer and upload to Facebook. And then I finally got a digital camera, and that was like a huge deal. And then I'm like not very good with technology, and Kurt knows this because I have so many questions for him all the time. I'm like, why can I not do things? I like really struggle. So that's like the only thing I think that was holding me back from vlogging for a long time, because I started getting into watching vlogs. Oh
Yeah.
man, I don't even know when. but I was really into Instagram stories for a while, and I would do these like elaborate Instagram stories and then save them as highlights. And I'd be like, this is the one highlight where I like made this very elaborate Instagram story that told the whole story of my day. And then I ran out of highlights. They started to disappear. Like it was like, you have over 100 highlights now. We're removing the old ones. And at that point, like so many Starkid fans had reached out and said, you should really have a YouTube video and vlog. But I'm like, I only know how to use iMovie. And I barely know how to do that. But then I started to actually document and vlog things because I really liked watching vloggers, especially Yoni Yinton. She was one of my first. And but I never did anything with them. So I have like a couple really old, like when Brian and I went to Scotland, when we went to Ireland, when we went to this island called Sark, and like different Starkid cons and stuff. I really documented them in vlog
Mhm.
style, but never did anything because I was so overwhelmed with the thought of having to learn editing. So when the pandemic hit, I was like, a lot of people were laid off from the Adler where I work, and I got to keep my job, and they're like, we need you to do digital stuff. And so I created my first vlog, which was like an Earth Day vlog, just talking about like life at home during Earth Day. And like Brian showed me how he helped me a lot with editing. And that was just kind of the first one. And I was like, well, now I have nothing to do, so why don't I keep going with this? And that's when I like really started vlogging. And then that became kind of my main, now I do it once a week. Actually, for the month of December, I'm doing 2 vlogs a week because I'm trying to do like a
That's
mini vlog.
amazing.
Yeah, like a semi vlogmas. I'm not going to
Yeah,
do every.
yeah.
Um, so
Well,
yeah,
and so this is what's fascinating to me because I love taking videos. I love, obviously, I'm like a nerd for like, ooh, this camera and this lens. But I've like in the last like few years, Kim and I have traveled to some wonderful places.
yeah,
We were in Kauai, and we went to, I don't know, we went to Portland, and and I've captured some footage that I think is stunning. And I find myself putting it into Premiere and going like, I don't know what to do with it. Like, I don't know
yeah,
how to tell the story with it. And that to me is the difference. It's like you can shoot all the stuff in the world with a fancy drone and a $20,000 camera, but to know how to frame it and tell the story and immerse you know what I mean? Like, because you're not
yeah,
just making a Nat Geo documentary where it's like, wow, look at this cool vista. It's like, actually look at my POV in it. That's a very specific thing. And I've always been interested in trying to do more travel stuff. I feel like my skill is I love to capture other people's stuff or
yeah,
do narrative, but
yeah,
I'm not particularly great at capturing myself experiencing things. And you are. And I mean, that is a skill that takes time to develop. And a camera or whatever equipment that you can always get a nicer one or whatever, but that's like an innate skill of like how to tell that story that you can't, like, that doesn't, no amount of good footage or like expensive footage makes that better, if that makes any sense.
yeah. I think that that is what I like about even like photo, because I'm also a big photographer. Like I love photography, and I took classes and stuff so that I could learn how to use the equipment. But I do think I have an eye for like, these things all look really nice together, and
Yes.
it's still like such a muscle for me to be like, I like the way that looks. I gotta capture it, and
Yes. Yeah.
angle it and all that stuff. Um,
And
then,
to translate that feeling of the moment to
yeah,
make somebody who is thousands of miles away removed, on a phone. That's a
right,
really incredible thing that I could sit here and on my phone. Maybe it's not as visceral as your experience was, but I could get a sense of like, oh, that's what that place is like, or oh, I
yeah.
feel like I've almost kind of been there with you.
Yeah, and I think what really helped me translate those things is just watching other vlog, because like I really did find my people in like on YouTube and in different
Mhm.
vlog communities, like people who are like me and are very seasonal. Like, here are the books I'm reading this summer because they have summer vibes. You know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
oh, okay, I'm not the only person who's like that. And then also just like seeing okay, this person really just set up what would be a beautiful photo, but it's a video, and they put
Yeah.
nice music underneath it, and then to the timing of the music, now they're switching to this beautiful shot, and it's like, oh, that's kind of all you got to do. Wow, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like that's what's giving me is it serotonin or whatever? Like that's what's making me
Yeah.
feel warm and cozy right now. And then like, oh wow, they're walking into the shot and they're pouring hot cocoa. Now this is nice. So yeah, I mean, like, just I learned a lot from other people. Yona
Yeah.
is great. She's if y'all haven't watched
I
Yona,
mean, her videography is
I know.
stunning.
I
It's
think she has.
incredible.
I think she has like hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment. I mean, like Sweden,
Yeah.
like the king of Sweden, like gave her an award once. Is there a king? It was like something like the king or somebody. They're like, you have done so much for Sweden through your vlog. So I'm not surprised she's able to,
Yeah.
do that stuff. But
Yeah. I also think too, like, I remember talking to Jamie Lynn about this with this project we've been working on, the Space Baby project,
Mhm.
which is coming out soon.
Oh, I can't wait.
But we were talking a little bit, and obviously your stuff is not, your vlogs and the stuff you share is not Starkid. It's yours. But one thing we were talking about when we were talking about making Space Baby, because limited budget, being
Right.
like, what is our scope? What is our scale? And something that Jamie identified that I just really connected with me as somebody who's always been like, I want the best shot, the best light, the best camera, the best whatever. Jamie was like, I think a lot of people who watch our stuff, whether it's Starkid or other things, or just even the stuff that we make, and Jamie is so obviously creative, is like something that people really appreciate is the handmade
Mhm.
imperfection of it. And
Yeah.
like, it really helped me when I was like, oh, well, I'm so disappointed. And like, I wanted to do this. And Jamie's like, well, yeah, like, well, we can, but we'll just tie a little string to it. Like we'll
Yes.
just make it. And that was like that was actually a huge like epiphany for me of like, oh, right. Like it's not just about a better shot and a better camera and a better lighting. And you could, put $1 million camera on a gimbal and fly it around. But something that people are drawn to is the fact that it feels authentic and raw. And especially now as everything is just, the more we see these synthetic, that's not a word,
I think
synthetic,
synthetic.
like
Oh, yeah, yeah.
AI perfection-y. Like I've seen a lot of this because I like to listen to a lot of lo-fi,
Me
and
too!
I get and I get like recommendations where I'll see like they clearly use like AI art to like make this just
The
perfect
ambiance
looking,
videos?
cozy. Yeah, and you're like, but
Yeah.
it doesn't look real,
Uh-huh.
and I'm
Mhm.
like, no, the magic is that it feels like a little imperfect, and so I don't know. That's been I've been thinking about that a lot recently. Of like, well, what do I want to do creatively? And being like, oh, I don't need to be I don't need to be worried about that I don't have the scope and the scale. And that is like a big reason of like with Starkid or a lot of the stuff that I've been a part of with just friends of creatively in the last few years of like, the idea is to make what you have with what you have. And that's not a negative. That's actually maybe the reason people are watching, is that
Right.
they're like, oh, I like this. This feels like if I want perfect, flawless, whatever, I can go to Disney Plus or something. It's like, but what I can offer the world is something imperfect and authentic. And
Mhm.
that's not like, I don't need to, as you mentioned with the ambition thing, this actually helped me a lot, is I don't need to have an ambition to just get past this phase. One day I'll be done with all of this imperfection. It's like, actually, no, that's the best part of it.
Right.
Um, and I don't know. It's like I've been thinking about that a lot creatively, even so much as like right before I went to Chicago, I actually bought I bought uh, a 1975 like Soviet lens, and it's got some chunks in it, and it's
You
got
can
like a
put it
little bit
on
of
a
fuzziness.
modern camera?
Yeah, I put it on my cinema camera, and it looks gorgeous. It doesn't look perfect, but it's like, I don't know. And so I've been really interested in creatively going like, wait, can I really just lean into that and explore like what does that where does that get you when things are not crisp and everything is just like, I don't know. So as much as I like tech and I'm like a nerd for that stuff, it's also like that stuff can really ruin the story you're trying to tell worth telling,
I wish we could combine. I wish we could just make one being, because if I had more technical, like, I can't tell you how often I'll make a video and then I'll be like, I'll spend so much time on it, and I'll use my nice camera, and then I'll be like, shit, it looks like ass. And then I'll be like, tell me why this shot looks like ass. What did I do? Why? And it's just,
Why?
I don't understand the technology.
Well, I mean, like and I think some of the stuff I've put out looks like ass too, but the, I remember like when I first started making videos, this was like I think it was like 2015. I remember being like kind of similar. I was like, I want to make videos. I think that would be cool.
Yeah.
And so I did this on Instagram, and it was before stories. It was before reels, but I just like made a video every day for like 3 months.
Amazing.
I called it, what did I call it? It's like my day in 15 seconds or something. You can only post like 15 seconds. So what I did is I tried to like every day capture the most cinematic part of my day in 15 seconds or less. And then I would cut those together and put them on YouTube at the end of the week. And it was I did it for like months, and it was such a good exercise. And I was just, how the heck do I cut a video together? Because I realized I was never going to figure it out if I didn't have a reason to do it. I think I like downloaded Premiere Pro, and I downloaded some like test footage. It was like, download these files and follow these tutorial to learn how to edit. And I was like, I don't care. Like, I knew I wouldn't do it unless it was mine.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, yeah. And so the thing I've realized though about tech is like and I've talked to friends who are cinematographers and stuff, is that there's just like, you can get caught in this black hole of like, well, the new models come out and this model has better
Yes.
dynamic range, and
Yes.
it's like, and at some point you're just like, the thing you have is the thing that is the best thing you could do to make something.
Yeah.
Like you can always get a better machine,
This is something else that Clark and I have bonded over with instruments and like instrument equipment. I don't know the names of different, and there's so many musicians are like, oh, I just got a new Rhodes, blah 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 blah. I'm like, cool, and it's like one of those things as a musician, if you don't know music equipment, you either have to play it off like
right.
you do, which is what I used to do. And then I reached a point, and Clark has reached a point now too, where he just goes, I actually don't know anything about equipment, so I don't know what that means. And I just started to be honest, because I was tired of like faking it and going, oh, so cool that you have that, and changing the subject. But yeah, I like don't know anything about kind of anything.
Well, that's not true, but
you know what I mean? I don't.
Yeah, totally. No.
Tech,
I have a friend who's a photographer, and he tells me this is something that always frustrates him. He'll post a photo, right, and a beautiful composition, whatever. And a lot of times, like the first, comment or whatever is, what camera did you use?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's because people are genuinely like inspired and are like, oh, I would love to try that. But a lot of times it comes from it's good because you bought the right camera. And if I buy the right camera and I press and I hit take picture, it will look, and it's like, composition, framing, lighting, edit, and like there's all these intangibles that this piece of equipment in your hand, like, yeah, sometimes it can help, but it doesn't, it's just a tool. And I've tried to remind myself of that. And I think Kim is very grateful that I've been on this journey of not buying more gear. because I've gotten to that cycle where I'm like, if I just had this light, oh, the things I would make. And then you buy it and then you're like, well, I didn't do any, like, so it's, all that being said, I love how you create stuff, especially with your vlogs. I think they look great. Even if you feel like some parts look like ass, I don't think they do. And furthermore, nobody cares.
I know, no one ever cares.
It's you. Like, that's what they love about it. And
I'm like, why don't my vlogs look like Yona's vlogs?
because you need to know the king. You gotta.
Yeah, I know. The king probably gave her cinematic camera.
He probably said, "Here's a drone, and here's a royal attendant to fly it for you."
Exactly.
Well, that brings us to an hour, so I don't want to keep you too long. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for talking about the show. I'm so grateful to know both you and Brian, and be your friend and get to make things with you. And also just like, not, like you said, not to be ambitious, but just to get to be your friend. It's like, I love you guys. And it's just, I'm so
Yeah.
glad that we get to make stuff together and it allows us to keep in contact. It's just wonderful.
Oh, thanks, Kurt. Yeah, we love having you come to town because it's like, I remember there was a day when you were chatting with the understudies, and like later that night, Angela, Brian, and I came home, and we have these understudies who were very like they're very young, they're like
Yeah.
brand new to and just like watching the way Kurt is like just engaging with them in the most honest, beautiful way about the industry, but then also about like other small things, like we were talking about Thanksgiving dinner at one time, and just like I was like the Angela was like, I was just watching them and they were like, you could just tell they just were like, this guy is actually like giving us the time of day, and he's like talking to us about careers, and like we're learning, and you've just had such an like you've had such an awesome and amazing career, but then you're also just like you sit and you listen to people, and like you listen, affirm, respond, and add information. That's something I in my communication workshops. That's the best kind of listener, is someone who like is like, you could tell that you're listening, and then like you repeat things back to people, and like I don't know, and you just remember details about people, and it's just special. You're just a special kind
Thank
of
you.
person.
I really appreciate that. And I mean, that's truly like, I feel like that's the desire to do that comes from because people have done that with me, where I walk into a situation and go, I don't know anybody. And then somebody has been kind enough to be like,
Yeah.
hey, and then you're like, oh, and it's like, never underestimate. I just got to work on a TV show in Vancouver, which was
Mhm.
amazing. And the
Yeah.
lead of the show, Jesse Martin, who is from Rent and various things.
Yeah.
Just one of my, like, I love his work. And I went into the situation thinking like, oh, I hope he likes me or whatever. And
Right.
he was the most gracious I've ever. He knew every person on the crew. He knew every single person. He like the drivers, the crafty person, the lighting
Yes.
grip people. He got my number from production and like reached out after we shot and sent me the most lovely message. And I literally was like, wow, I'm going to frame this, and this is probably going to keep me going for the next 10 years, creatively. And I'm like, you just don't know like what it can mean
Yeah.
to have somebody, you know what I mean? It
Give you
means
the
so
time of
much. And
day.
yeah. And also too, it makes like doing stuff with people fun when, like, I don't know. It's crazy to me when people, obviously if you're having a day and you need to like have your space, that's valid. But it's
Mhm.
crazy to me when like people are just like, don't talk to me. And I'm like,
Yeah.
we're dressing up together. We're doing
Right.
make believe. What do we do? Like we
I know. You really gave everyone like the time of day. It was so special to watch.
Oh,
I loved
thank you. I
it.
appreciate that. Well, guys, check out VHS Christmas Carols. The digital ticket is out now. It's awesome. Meredith
Link
plays
right
in the
here.
band,
Just kidding.
plays music, plays Jacob Marley, is the champion, is the heart of the show. Brian edited the crap out of it, is
Yeah.
also in it. Meredith and Brian are produced. You have to watch it. Go watch it. It's awesome.